Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating power dynamics and, frankly, the essential guardrails that govern the world's largest companies. If you're studying corporate issuers, or honestly, if you just want to understand the invisible forces steering the entire market, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to unpack the whole shebang, the system of checks, balances, and incentives that make up corporate governance. Here's our roadmap. We'll be hitting the principal-agent problem, clashing corporate stakeholders, governance mechanisms, the board of directors, and wrap up with risks versus performance benefits.
Section 1. The principal-agent problem.
So, who really controls a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Think about it. If you've ever bought even a single share of stock, you're technically an owner. But does that actually mean you have control? Well, in a sole proprietorship, the owner and the manager are the exact same person. Easy, right? But in a massive corporation, there's a huge, distinct separation between ownership and management. You provide the capital, but someone else entirely is making those day-to-day decisions. Let's look at how control actually flows and who really holds the reins. It is a totally messy, interconnected ecosystem of relationships. You've got shareholders acting as the primary capital providers. But to actually run the corporation, they don't do it themselves. They elect a board of directors, who then turn around and hire the managers. So it's not some direct, simple line of command. It's a highly complex chain of delegated authority.
This brings us to a really crucial concept, the principal-agent relationship. Basically, shareholders are the principal. They hand their hard-earned money over to agents, the managers, to run the business. And this entire setup, it's built purely on trust. There's this huge expectation that the agent is going to act with absolute loyalty and diligence to maximize shareholder value. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. These agents almost always possess way more internal information than the principal. We call this information asymmetry. As a shareholder sitting on the outside, you really can't easily verify if that manager on the inside is actually acting in your best interest. And because of that massive information gap, agents might just put their own interests first. This creates what we call agency costs, and managerial misbehavior can take a few really specific forms. First up is insufficient effort. Maybe they just aren't managing costs, or maybe they're too busy sitting on outside boards to focus on your company. Then you've got empire building. This is pursuing growth literally just for the sake of growth, like pushing through terrible acquisitions simply because their own compensation is tied to how big the company gets. Next is entrenchment. This is when managers pursue overly complicated strategies just to make themselves utterly indispensable, basically protecting their own jobs. And finally, the big one, self-dealing. This is outright exploiting the firm's resources for ridiculous perks. We're talking private corporate jets, lavish offices, or even outright misappropriating assets. Moving on to Section 2, clashing corporate stakeholders. Shareholders aren't just one big, happy, homogeneous group. There are deep divides. Take controlling shareholders, like a founding family, for example. They might have the vast majority of their personal wealth tied up in the company, so their main goal, stability. On the flip side, minority shareholders usually hold widely diversified portfolios. They just want the company to aggressively maximize value. Now, to maintain immense power without actually owning the majority of the financial stake, controlling insiders often use these highly controversial dual-class share structures. This means they hold a special class of stock, let's call them Class B shares, that gives them multiple votes per single share. Meanwhile, regular public investors get stuck with Class A shares, giving them only one vote. This effectively overrides the will of the majority, leaving those minority shareholders incredibly vulnerable to having their votes completely diluted.
But it doesn't stop at shareholder rivalries. There is a fundamental, built-in tension between debt and equity, between shareholders and creditors. Shareholders are what we call residual claimants. That means they get whatever cash is left over after all the bills are paid. Because they have literally unlimited upside, but their downside is capped at whatever they initially invested, they want management to swing for the fences. They want massive risks and tons of leverage to boost their returns. Creditors and bondholders? Total opposite. They have a fixed claim. They absolutely do not get a bonus if the company suddenly doubles its profits. They just want their timely interest and their principal paid back, period. Because of this, they are terrified of high leverage and high risk, which is exactly why they often impose super strict debt covenants, just to limit how much cash those risk-hungry shareholders can extract.
Section 3, corporate governance mechanisms. So with all these clashing interests, how does the whole system not just implode? Well, to keep the corporate machine running fairly, we rely on some absolutely vital checks and balances. It all starts with mandatory corporate reporting and transparency. Mandatory, fully audited financial statements pull back the curtain. allowing outside stakeholders to actually see and assess performance. Then we have shareholder mechanisms, primarily voting rights. These are exercised at annual general meetings, or AGMs, and extraordinary general meetings, EGMs. This is the crucial lever that allows investors to actually replace directors. But when things get really out of hand, the ultimate check is a corporate takeover. This might happen via a proxy contest, where an outside group tries to persuade existing shareholders to vote their specific slate of directors into power. Or it could be a tender offer, literally going straight to investors to buy their shares directly, aiming to forcibly take over a hostile or underperforming management team.
Section 4. The Board of Directors.
Now, while the board is held responsible as a whole entity, the real heavy lifting, that happens in the committees. There are 3 core committees that most major stock exchanges either strictly recommend or flat out require. First up is the Audit Committee. They oversee the internal controls and ensure all that financial reporting is actually accurate. Honestly, they are the ultimate defense against corporate fraud. Second, we have the Compensation Committee. Their job is to design pay packages that actually align manager incentives with shareholder goals. Theoretically, this is what stops that empire building we talked about earlier. And finally, the Nominating and Governance Committee. They are in charge of selecting new director candidates and setting governance policies. And here is the kicker. It is absolutely crucial that these committees are staffed by independent directors. We're talking people with zero material relationship to the company, so they can objectively and without any bias evaluate management. And finally, Section 5, Risks versus Performance Benefits. At the end of the day, the stakes here are massive. When these checks and balances fail, poor governance inevitably leads to managers acting as very poor agents. What does that mean for the company? It means hidden costs from shady related party transactions. It means operational inefficiency from totally unchecked empire building. And it can mean catastrophic legal or reputational damage from weak oversight. Conversely, effective governance, it acts as a massive performance booster. When a board defines a really clear risk profile and actively, vigorously supervises management, the everyday decisions actually align with shareholder interest. This clear, structured delegation of authority drives operational efficiency and gives investors the total confidence they need to provide capital at much lower costs. Simply put, a well-governed company is a significantly more valuable company. When you strip away all the dense corporate jargon, governance is really just about ensuring that the people holding the money respect the people who provided it. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder the very next time you look at your own portfolio. In a world full of complex, dual-class shares and empire-building managers, are you truly an owner with a powerful voice? Or are you just blindly funding someone else's corporate kingdom? Keep that in mind. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.